Assalamu alaikum, it's Faisal here, and welcome to the next module. And today we're going to be going through rediscovering your real purpose. So, here's what we're going to cover: our origin story, the rights and responsibilities ratio, the mandate of heaven, and then finding a common thread. And so, as you've noticed by now, I like to start with a story. So let's do one from the Quran today. And this is the story of Adam alayhi salam, the creation story. So let's go through it. So behold, the Lord said to the angels, I will create a vicegerent on earth. So the angels then said, will you place one who will make mischief and cause bloodshed, whilst we celebrate your praises and we glorify your name? So the angels here are saying that, look, why are you creating this creature who is capable of causing fitna and bloodshed, whilst what we're praising your name constantly. And then Allah said, I know what you do not know. Like there's something special about this thing that I'm creating that you don't know. And then he taught Adam alayhi salam the name of all things. And then he showed them to the angels, saying, okay, if you think you're better than this creature, then you tell me about these things, or the names of these things, if you're truthful. And then they said, may you be glorified. We have knowledge only of what you have taught us. You are the all-knowing, the all-wise. So then he said to Adam, okay, well, now you tell me the name or tell them the names of these things. And so when he told them their names, Allah said, did I not tell you that I know what is hidden in the heavens and the earth, and that I know what you reveal and what you conceal? So what this is telling them immediately is that the thing that distinguishes this creation, this human, from the angels is this knowledge, the fact that he knew the names of all these things. That intellect essentially is what distinguishes them from angels. So then he says to the angels, okay, bow down before Adam. And they all bowed, but not Iblis, who refused and was arrogant. He was one of the disobedient. So, by the way, obviously the ones that I've highlighted are also significant points. So then we said, Adam, go live with your wife in this garden. Both of you eat freely there as you will, but do not go near this tree, or you will both become wrongdoers. So obviously, they were said, look, the garden is all yours, everything is all yours, but there's a responsibility that they've been given. That, look, this one tree is off limits. As long as you can carry out that responsibility to avoid that tree, then the rest is all yours. But Shaitan made them slip. So it's very interesting language, even though this is technically like the biggest mistake in history, and it's the reason why we're on this earth instead of in the garden. Essentially, Allah just uses soft language. He makes them slip, and it was Shaitan who made them slip. And then he removed them from the state they were in. And then we said, get out, all of you. You are each other's enemy. So the roles were cast at this point. There's humanity, and then there's Shaitan, who's now the sworn enemy at this point. So on earth, you'll have place to stay and a livelihood for a time. So your rizq will be given to you, and you have somewhere to reside. And then Adam received some words from his Lord, and he accepted his repentance. So obviously, this was devastating for him. So Allah reassured him and consoled him and said, look, I accept your repentance, because he is ever relenting, the most merciful. And we said, get out, all of you. But when guidance comes from me, as it certainly will, there will be no fear for those who follow my guidance, nor will they grieve. So what Allah is saying here is that, look, even though I've told you to get out, I will be sending you guidance. And as long as you follow that guidance, there'll be no fear for you, and don't worry, you won't grieve any longer. So that's from Surah Baqarah 30 to 38. Okay, so what we learn from that story, the first thing, is Allah has given us a number of things. Right? He's given us intellect. So he taught Adam the name of all things. That has given us this intellect. And then he gave us this free will. He gave us free will. So angels have to follow every single instruction, but for us, we have that kind of free will. And then, since we've been, put on this earth, he's also then given us struggle and this eternal battle with Shaitan. Essentially. So these are the kind of the things that kind of we learn from this story. So now let's get back into. So that's the kind of the origin story that you've probably heard a million times before. But it's very, very interesting because you could argue essentially that this is, the purpose story of the Quran. Like, you just learn this and that's enough. Now I want to tell you another mini story, right? I went to see a scholar, a while back, and I was telling him, look, I'm doing this purpose thing. What's your thoughts on purpose? And he was saying, look, there's a very clear distinction. This scholar is he's like a walking encyclopedia. He's classically trained, all the traditional kind of, at the feet, he learned at the feet of all these traditional scholars, etc. So, mashallah, lots of, he's very, very learned. Anyway, so what he said is that, look, there's a clear distinction. So there's something that Allah expects. So Allah expects the whole, I have created man and jinn to worship me. So he expects the bare minimum, which is humanity must worship him. Right? But then there's you can contrast that with what Allah loves. Now what Allah loves is that state that he created Adam in, where he was proud to show him to the angels. That state of, okay, well, if you think this person's going to cause bloodshed, he will prove you wrong. I've created him to be something special. And then he tested Adam. Okay, tell them the name of all these things that I've taught you. And it just shows that, so what it's saying is that what Allah loves is his creation, i.e. humanity, mankind, for them to fulfill this vast potential, this immense capacity that Allah has given us, for us to fulfill that potential. That is what Allah truly, truly loves, as shown in this story. And so I was like, I was quite happy when I heard that, actually, because obviously it's very in line with all the research, but it was a very profound point. And so again, why did the angels bow down? What is it that distinguished them from him? It's this understanding and like massive capacity for intellect that's been given to us. So what rediscovering your real purpose, going back to Fitra, is to achieve our highest potential and doing our duty as Khalifa. But that was the first sentence. I've created this vicegerent on earth, and that's what Allah actually made us for. So this concept that I keep mentioning, self-actualization, that would help us to do the duties as Khalifa. And so it is our knowledge and potential that distinguishes us from the angels. So only when we are growing and developing do we do what Allah really loves above all else. And that was what made him proud to show Adam to the angel that made them bow down. Obviously, even when you look at this like playing out in your life, when you go back to Fitra, look at a child who is on the Fitra, as we established. A child is happiest when it's learning and growing, and it's capable of absorbing so much. Now, I've got 3 children, 2 of them are of school age right now, and when I collect them from school or when they come back from school, and I ask them, what did you learn today? They're always excited about it. Oh my God, I learned about the leaves today, or I learned about the letter J for jelly and all this kind of stuff. So it's amazing, how much excitement and enthusiasm that they have when they're learning something new. Obviously, as people get older, this is kind of taken away from us. But again, the way this is something that's innate, that we actually are capable of massive growth, but we also something that we love as well. So the reason for everything, the ultimate blessing in life, is to know Allah. Right, everything we do is for Him, and why? It's to achieve our soul's sa'adah, contentment, and to reach its ultimate destination, which we identified before, is to know God and therefore to get to Jannah. So no one can argue or dispute that. This is what is considered the success metrics of the Muslim. And Jannah is where we will meet God, know God, inshallah. But now, there's this new player introduced, Shaitan. He's our sworn lifelong enemy, and he only has one purpose. He only has one purpose, which is to take us off our purpose, right? So he's diametrically opposed to us, right? So our destination should be Jannah, but he diverts us. He wants to take us to the opposite, which is Jahannam. And so that's why the world is set up the way it is. And every trick in the book is used to take us off our purpose, whether it's distraction, whether it's sowing discord, whether it's decadence, whether it's division. I can go on. There's so much that is set up for us to be heedless, to forget our true nature and our true purpose. And so this is another theme that's going to be quite prevalent as we go through this, is the one of duality, right? So looking at opposites. So understand that for every rule I've mentioned from the Quran, the devil has one to match it, which he puts beside the proper rule to cause error. Right, so this is this is how we get confused. So when we talk about purpose, meaning, so it needs to be done with this lens, what takes us to Jannah, and vice versa. So that will come later on in the program. I'm just introducing it here. Okay, so that's that. So the ultimate aim of religion is for man to return to the state in which he was before he existed, and this involves the quest for his identity and its transcendent destiny through right conduct. This returning is what life is all about, and it involves the pursuit of true knowledge, the understanding of God's signs and symbols in the pages of the book of nature by means of the guiding light of his words, and interpreted in the sacred person of his messenger. It also involves the application of the sound senses to the experience of reality, and the application of that sound reason to the apprehension of truth. So that was, say, Naqib al-Atas in Islam and the Philosophy of Science. So again, what this quote is essentially saying is that the ultimate aim of Islam is for the human to return to the state he was before he existed, that state of true fitrah. And that is what his real identity is. And right conduct will ensure he gets there. But how that happens is the pursuit of true knowledge, right? And so again, the self-development, self-actualization, all of these things, and that comes via understanding God's signs and symbols, the book of nature, the prophet's example, and understanding our sensory experience of the world as well. So this is a quite cool diagram as well. Is that obviously we know our destination is Jannah. That's our objective. That's what we are striving for. And that this world is a test and temporary and a trust and all these things. But sometimes what happens is that because Jannah is something that's intangible, it can make us forget. And so we need to put point B as God. Because if we try and aim for then God, we want to get to know God, we want to please God, all of these things, it means that will be good for our akhirah, as in it'll get us to the Jannah as well. And it'll be good for our current world as well, because then God is tangible as opposed to heaven, which is something that we can't imagine and all this stuff. So I thought that was quite a cool thing. I mean, Islam is the vehicle to get us from point A to point B. Anyway, so let's go. So following on from the origin story, there's another sort of component that can come out of that: the rights and responsibilities ratio. So as we know, Allah showed the angels the vast capacity that Adam has been given that distinguishes this creation from any other. So yes, this capacity may mean, as in the free will, may mean that it causes bloodshed, but it also means they are capable of worshipping Allah of their own accord and coming up with amazing ideas on their own, unlike angels who just worship Allah without any choice. So because we have a choice and we're responsible for that choice, we will be held accountable on the Day of Judgment and go to either hell or heaven. And angels and animals and plants and other things won't be. So Allah has only given us the right to choose. So that's a luxury, that's a privilege. But with rights comes responsibilities. Rights go hand in hand with responsibility. So for example, if you abuse the rights that you've been granted, eventually you'll be punished. And if you want more rights, you must take on more responsibility. So for example, why do people run for office or for leadership? Because they get more rights. They got, okay, there's more responsibility that they're taking on, but okay, they get more rights, they get status, they get respect, they get privileges, etc. So this is the balance. This is like the almost like a divine balance, and you can't have one without the other. For example, let's say we do. Let's say you get rights without any responsibility. You become spoiled. So imagine a child, for example. You let them do anything, eventually they'll act out, and you have to bribe them and force them to, if you want them to actually do something that you need them to do. And then in the same way, the opposite end of the spectrum, if you have lots of responsibilities but without any rights, you're a slave. And having tasks without being rewarded for them is unfair. And so free rights without responsibility leads to corruption. And so we need to understand that whilst we've been given a lot of gifts. And so just going back to this origin story, Allah gave Adam a lot of rights. Enjoy Jannah, do whatever you want, but you had to give them a big responsibility. Look, do not go near this tree. He was tested and he abused that trust. He used the rights wrongly. So he used his capacity for free will to listen to shaitan. Because obviously angels wouldn't do that. And he was tempted by false promises. And obviously we are a reflection of him. Right? So every day we make wrong choices despite the gifts we've been given. So as the rights were abused, then some of the rights were taken away. But then his responsibilities also decreased as well. Hence he was sent to earth where there's less choice, there's less luxury. In paradise, you want something, you just wish for it, you get it. On earth, you have to work for it, you have to earn it, you have to hunt it. So his rights have been taken away, but then his responsibilities were taken away as well. So this ratio balance keeps things in order. If you mess with this, it corrupts things. Society is being corrupted today because everyone who's shouting for their own equal rights without increasing everyone's shouting for their own rights without increasing their level of responsibility. People who always want to receive but don't want to give, that messes things up for life. That's why in Islam, the more rights you have, the more accountable you are. The man, for example, has more rights, more capacity, more power, but then it has a lot more responsibilities in terms of taking care of everything, and he'll be questioned on everything. How were you just? How did you manage this? How did you manage the family rights? How did you do this? How did you do that? So how did you earn? Was that earning halal, etc.? And I remember reading this where for women, they are asked if they, or the hadith I think, where if they pray and do the basic worship and obey their husband, they can go through Jannah through any door or any gate. So that is an example of there's less responsibility on them in that context. So I mean that's just an example, but you get the point. So this is the dynamic for life: more rights, more accountability. Another thing that has been corrupted. This is another thing that's been corrupted because billionaires, for example, they've been given huge rights, huge luxury, huge prestige, but then they've lobbied. So they have to have less responsibilities. So they've lobbied, they want to pay less tax, or they want to enjoy certain freedoms. So again, this messes up the ratio. It messes up the mizan. Remember in the first session we talked about the balance and why they're corrupted is because this balance keeps getting messed up and being pushed. So if you want to grow and get more, then we need to look at the responsibilities we are willing to take on and shoulder. So if you're unhappy with your life right now, it might be that if you want more rights and luxuries and better X and better Y, then okay, maybe you need to take on more responsibility for some of this stuff. It works the other way around too. So if you take on more responsibility, let's say you want to get to a stage where you want growth and benefit and all this. You want a better life. If you actually say, okay, you know what, I'm going to take on more responsibility, but let's say in your job, eventually you will get more rights, more privileges, right? And we see this already because we reward people according to how much effort they put in. So again, we need to maintain this balance. So this is something critical at this stage we need to identify and we need to recognize, especially within our capacity as human beings, because this is a natural law. This is Allah's dynamic system and it's perfect harmony, and Allah has built this within our fitrah too. That's why if we get rewarded without contributing towards something, it actually feels empty. You think, oh, I didn't really deserve that, but okay, great, and stuff. So again, this is something innate. So I'll give you to another example of it. If we take responsibility for our prayers, so for example, we don't pray out of obligation, it's more sincere, the reward is higher. That leads to more rights, leads to more khushu, more iman, more faith, more conviction, maybe even more insight. eventually, you keep doing that, you're taking responsibility for this thing. It leads to more barakah in life. And then you keep doing that. That might eventually then you being seen as a leader in the community and helping others. So this is how it works. All of these are privileges, and by us taking this responsibility on, Allah is increasing His favors and giving more rights accordingly. Not to mention more privileges and more rights in paradise. But then, as a result, then His expectation increases. So when He expects more from you, He gives you more resources. But then, when you've got more resources, but then you've got more tests that come your way as well. That's something. This is how the balance works. So as you can see, this is how it works. You just need that perfect balance, which is on the right hand side. That is the equilibrium. So God gave to Adam and his descendants the gift of intelligence, asking in return not for blind praise, but for a lucid and joyful understanding of the nature of all things and their source. That was Charles Eaton in Islam and the Destiny of Man. So, okay, the mandate of heaven. So, the mandate of heaven is actually an ancient Chinese concept, where the Chinese ruler was considered to have been selected by God as the son of heaven to legitimize their rule. So, when the new king's coming in, they think, so this is the mandate of heaven. He's been chosen specifically by heaven or by God. And so, and what would happen is that that would get the people on side as well. If they lost power, or they were overthrown, or they suffered from afflictions, this would then demonstrate to the people that, in terms of the narrative, it showed that they're unworthy, and that heaven had selected someone else instead, right? And Christians also had this concept, the divine right of kings, which would say that the king's authority came directly from God Himself. Right, so that's kind of this concept that has existed in history or in the past. But what's interesting is that we actually have something similar. Allah calls Adam alayhi salam His Khalifa. That means that God has entrusted Adam and all future generations of people to look after the world. So this is actually a specific job, a divine duty. A Khalifa is translated as vicegerent or steward. So this is, imagine if our monarch gave you a specific role. You're the chief minister of X. You're the governor of this region. That's exactly what this means. That's what this Khalifa title actually means. So let me give you the dictionary definition. So a definition of vicegerent, it's a verb. It's a person exercising delegated power on behalf of a sovereign or ruler. Person exercising delegated power on behalf of a sovereign or ruler. So we've already established, our relationship with God, and He is our sovereign and all of these things, right? So we have been given delegated power from Him to carry out a certain activity. Where does it come from? In mid-16th century, from medieval Latin, vicegerent is a person holding office, right? And that's kind of where it comes from. A person appointed by another, especially a ruler or sovereign, to exercise the latter's power and authority, just a deputy or a minister. So it's a very huge responsibility, it's a very huge honour that He's given us this title, that, look, this is your role on this earth. He's given us the capacity, as in the mental understanding and the physical ability and stuff, to be His Khalifa, His representative on this earth. So steward is another definition for what does steward mean. So it means supervise arrangements or keep order, for example at a large public event, manage or look after another's property. So again, we know that everything in the earth belongs to Him, but we're actually the caretaker. We're the manager of this, right? And to keep order. So again, order is, it's such a key word, because order is linked to justice. You know how you have the phrase law and order, they come to go together. So that's exactly our mandate of heaven, if you think about it. Muslims must strive to adhere to and advance God's will by establishing a society that reflects human dignity and justice. So we've been given the necessary intelligence, strength and divine guidance to do one thing: establish divine order. This means putting in place Allah's laws and systems in the way that He intended. Adam, as we know, is the first Khalifa, King Dawood, King David, is also identified by the Quran as the Khalifa, since he modeled his actions on God's commands and moral laws. That led to that, a golden age in that time. And of course, obviously, the Prophet. So very clearly, our divine duty is to establish order and to implement the created system on earth. So basically, to be Allah's Khalifa, so his representative, his viceroy and steward on this earth. What does that mean? So that means that they worship their Lord. We fulfill our God-given mission, so our duty, purpose, or role, and benefit and serve His creation, so that we maximize our infinite potential. So let me say that again. This is what God truly loves. So let me say that again. In order to be Allah's Khalifa and to do justice to this role He's given us, we must worship our Lord, fulfill our God-given mission. We must benefit and serve His creation and maximize our infinite potential. So these are the 4 components that make up being Allah's Khalifa. And in the Quran, it says, He it is who appointed you vicegerents upon the earth and raised some of you by degrees above others, so that He may try you in that which He has given you. Truly thy Lord is swift in retribution, and truly He is forgiving and merciful. So again, it says it very clearly in the Quran. He's appointed you as vicegerents, and then He's raised some of you above others. So again, the ones who are willing to take on more responsibilities are getting more rights. But then He's going to try them further. He's going to try them with what He's given them. And obviously then it talks about Allah's justice and how He's forgiving and merciful if mistakes are made, as He was with the other. So this was a good way of looking at it as well. So man was created for 3 purposes. So man's first purpose is in the cultivation of the earth, as it is implied in the verse, He has brought you out from the earth and made you inhabit it. So that means that man must earn his livelihood for his own sake and for the benefit of others. So that's critical. Man's second purpose is to worship God. As He says, I have not created jinn and man except to worship me. This means that man should obey God's commandment and prohibitions. And his third purpose is his vicegerency, referred to in, He will make you successes in the land and then observe what you will do. And in other verses. So vicegerency is the imitation of God in accordance with one's ability to rule by applying the noble virtues of the law, wisdom, justice, forbearance, beneficence and graciousness. These virtues draw man to paradise and close to God Most High. That was Al-Raghib al-Isfahani. So he's like an Islamic scholar in the past. So it's getting very clear, isn't it, in terms of the theme and this kind of divine responsibility. So it's come from this book, The Means to the Noble Qualities of the Revealed Law. So let's find a common thread through all this. Okay, so it's interesting that all of this stuff, these divine responsibilities are clear, but then how do we marry that up with the different rituals in Islam and what we're doing and what we've been taught, etc., etc.? So if that's our duty, why didn't God just say so? What do all the different rituals and obligations mean? Why do we do those? So we live in a world where we're bombarded with too much information to the point where it begins to lack meaning, so you can no longer see the wood for the trees. That's why we're doing this stuff, basic, bit-by-bit approach to revisit our understanding and internalize it so it actually makes sense to us. Right? So we're not just following because we've been told to follow, we're actually doing it because we actually truly understand it. So also we've been given a lot of guidance from the Quran to the Hadith to the Seerah to the scholars and their works and history and all of this stuff to help guide us on all these matters to do with our purpose and our roles. And although we have codified it and scholars have done amazing work in the past with the different schools of thought, do we actually understand everything? The modern world in particular, with the advent of secularism and stuff, has relegated most religious activity to worship and separates it from day-to-day life, which is completely against the original purpose. Remember, abuse means using something other than for its intending purpose. And so we've kind of abused the objective. Islam is constantly said that it's a complete way of life. So everything is there, we just need to understand. So how do you synthesize all of this to extract the core meaning and actions from this? only by doing this will things begin to then make sense. So much of the way our brain understands things is through patterns and trends. So if it sees something new, it first scans the brain to see if it can link it to something similar and categorize them. So when putting together this first framework that I'm going to be taking you through, so I had a very similar approach. Remember, the objective is to get some meaning. So I'm not trying to do the work of a scholar or anything like that. This is more, again, for my own understanding. I want to understand, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? So, and then see if there's any themes that kind of are visible. And one of my teachers also has a methodology to try and understand anything, which he calls a system of meaning. And how it works is you locate and pull together all the relevant ayats on a subject, so from the Quran, right? So that's because the Quran is our primary resource, and it stands above all other sources of information. It has that criterion. So this actually helps then with context, because what are the themes that keep coming up when you look at all this stuff? So that was the first part of call. Once the work with the Quran's been completed, then you turn to the Hadith, and then you turn to books, and you can do a similar work. So the idea through this work is that you can see the same themes repeat themselves through different examples and stories. So I kind of did an 80-20 of this. I just, what are the core things that we're told and over again? And, is there anything that we can categorize? So, for example, looking at the Seerah, looking at certain key surahs of the Quran, looking at the 5 pillars, looking at the Prophet's last sermon, which is advice to us, looking at the 40 hadiths of Nawawi, which are considered the most prominent, and looking at, again, where else has direct advice been given. So story of Luqman, story of Musa, who's the most mentioned prophet in the Quran, and his age has a lot of parallels to our age. So looking at a lot of this stuff, what can we glean from it? So I'm not going to give you obviously all of this stuff because it's heavy and it's not necessary for but I'm going to give you a couple of examples of what this looks like. So for example, Luqman's advice to his son. So this is chapter 31, called Surah Luqman. So the entire surah dedicated to him and his 10 pieces of advice that he gave to his son. As it's something that's very instructive, we can take a look at it to understand what are the core themes that are coming out. And obviously, also, it's elevated in the Quran because it's saying we've bestowed upon Luqman wisdom. So we know that what he's saying was something Allah praises wise. So it's valid. So when Luqman said to his son when he was advising him, "Oh my son, join not in worship of others with Allah." Right. So then he said, "And we have enjoined on man to be dutiful and good to his parents." Okay. "Oh my son, if it be anything equal to the weight of a grain of a mustard seed, and though it be in the rock or in the heavens, Allah will bring it forth. O my son, offer prayer perfectly, then enjoin on people all that is good and forbid them from all that is evil. Bear with patience whatever befalls you. Turn not your face away from men with pride, nor walk in insolence through the earth. Verily Allah likes not any arrogant boaster. Then be moderate and show no insolence in your walking, and lower your voice. Verily the harshest of all voices is the braying of asses." Oops. So what do we see? So first of all, to join not in worship others with Allah. So he's talking about worship, and so as you can see, I've highlighted it. Purple represents worship. Then we see at number 4 as well. "Oh my son, offer prayer perfectly." So again, the theme is worship. For the second, I am enjoined on man to be dutiful and good to his parents. And then 7 and 8, "Do not turn your face away from men with pride. Do not walk through the earth. Allah does not like any arrogant boaster." So the theme that keeps coming off here is relationships, being unified, and if you're dutiful and good to your parents, you have good relationships. Don't be arrogant. Do not boast. Again, that's good for relationships, etc. So then enjoin on people that is good and forbid them from all that is evil. So that's about justice. That's about enjoying the good, forbidding the evil, putting justice in place. Then we have bear with patience whatever befalls you. So that's resilience. That is being strong and accepting what Allah whatever affects you. Then you have oh my son, if anything is equal to the weight of a grain of a mustard seed, Allah will bring it forth. So it has to having knowledge that Allah can do anything. Allah has power to do all things. It's centered in knowledge. And then lower your voice. Basically, this is about service or being good in terms of to creation in general. So that's one example. Looking at the last sermon, so this is the last advice that the Prophet gave the Sahaba and Ummah before passing. So I won't go through all of it, but as you can see, some of these same themes are prevalent. Listen carefully to what I'm saying. So again, knowledge. Take these words to those who could not be present today. So service. Then regard the life of the property of Muslim as a sacred trust. Return the goods entrusted to you to the rightful owner. Again, justice. Hurt no one so that no one may hurt you. Again, unity or relationships. Remember, you will indeed meet your Lord, and He will reckon your deeds. Again, day of judgment, justice. He has forbidden you to take usury interests. So the whole interest thing. Again, justice. Beware of shaitan for the sake of your religion. He has lost hope that he will ever be able to lead you astray in big things. So beware of following in small things. So this could be seen as a warning and to stay vigilant and to stay resilient. Then the next one is again about rights, women's rights. He has rights of women, treat them well, etc., etc. Again, unity, relationships. Listen to me in earnest. Worship Allah. Perform your 5 daily prayers. Worship. Fast during the month of Ramadan. Again, resilience. That is, because fasting is difficult. Give your wealth in zakah. Justice. Perform Hajj. Worship. All mankind is from Adam. An Arab has no superior to a non-Arab. Again, unity. Learn that every Muslim is a brother to every Muslim. One brotherhood. Again, more unity, more relationships. But do not therefore do injustice to yourselves. Justice. One day you will appear before Allah and answer your deeds. Again, justice. No prophet or apostle will come after me. No new faith will be born. Again, worship. Keep your worship on the right. Reason well, therefore, and understand the words which I convey to you. I leave behind me 2 things: the Quran and my example, the Sunnah. If you follow these, you will never go astray. Again, knowledge. Reason well, and understand the words I convey to you. And then all those who listen to me, pass on my words to others, and be my witness that I've conveyed your message to your people. So all this is service. Make sure you pass on the good. So again, really, really clear, strong example of these kind of 6 themes that keep coming out. And another example is the gates of Jannah. So the hadith that whoever bears witness that there is no God but Allah alone, with no partner or associate, that Muhammad is a slave and messenger, and that Isa is the slave of Allah as a messenger, and a word which Allah bestowed on Maryam, and a spirit created by him. This is in Surah Nisa. And that paradise is true and hell is true. Then will have the right to be admitted by Allah to paradise through whichever of the 8 gates he wishes because of his good deeds. Sorry, so it's a hadith in Bukhari. So the point here is that it's said that Jannah has 8 gates. So what are these 8 gates? Whether one believes that these 8 gates of heaven are metaphorical, literal, it really helps to see where the core values of Islam actually lie. The names of the gates describe a spiritual practice that we should strive to incorporate into our lives. So the following 4 gate names are agreed by all scholars. So there's the gate of as-salat, prayer, which represents worship. Al-jihad, which is struggle for the sake of Allah. So justice and jihad is kind of hand in hand. Al-rayan, for those who fast, it means quench of thirst. So you could say that this is worship, this is also resilience. As-sadaqah, charity. So, charity is good for unity in relationships, but it's also good for justice. Spreading, distributing wealth, and it's also service as well. So, as for the rest below, there's some disagreement among scholars, but the names are between the following. So, at-tawbah, which is repentance, which you could classify as worship. Al-qazimin al-ghayz, which are those who control their anger. So, again, that's good for relationships, unity. It's also good for resilience. Al-afin an-nas, those who forgive people. So again, unity. You can see how much emphasis there is on unity. Al-razin, those who are content. Right? Al-ayman, on the right, so those who enter paradise without judgment. Al-zikr, remember to Allah, worship. Al-ilm, knowledge, which is about knowledge. Right? So again, there's 4 that are sort of universal, and then amongst the other 7 which are kind of disputed. But again, similar themes keep cropping up. Okay, so introducing the Know Your Purpose framework. So the key summary of all my research and learnings was that I was able to find and categorize most of what we are instructed to do falls loosely into 6 core distinct categories. So these 6 categories are our 6 purposes and make up this model. And this makes up the framework that is our macro level approach to purpose for us as humans. The objective of this model is that no matter what, nothing feels random, everything is bound together, and you're able to make good decisions, because that's what life essentially is. It's just you making a bunch of decisions. And so if you have a good life, it's because you made good decisions. If you have a bad life, it's because you've probably made bad decisions along the way that take you off course. So your life is essentially the sum of all the decisions you've made. So let's introduce the framework. The first 3 are applicable for all Muslims, and the second 3 are unique to each individual based on who they are. And what you'll find is that once you start digging deeper into this stuff, you'll get even better, even more clearer in the top areas. You'll level up in every area of your life, inshallah. And so, let me just take you through this really quickly. So, we said worship is component 1. Unity in relationships is component 2. Justice in jihad is component 3. Be like the beloved. So, I'll go on to that in the future module. But this essentially means resilience. Seek knowledge is number 5, and then service and impact is number 6. And so when you say it's relevant for all Muslims, it's relevant for all Muslims, who no matter who you are. And when you say unique to you, I mean all of these things are relevant to all Muslims, whoever you are. But the way you might demonstrate it might change according to your unique gifts, or who you are as a person. So the way you show resilience, for example, the way you provide service might be different based on your own makeup and your own nature. So this is the ultimate program for self-actualization, as it lays out the blueprint of what Muslims need to focus on to become those that are the best version of themselves. And so the next 2 sessions, I'm going to be going to each of these sessions or these aspects even more deeply. So you'll see it exactly by understanding this model. Everything in your life will start to make sense, inshallah. So here's what we covered: our origin story, the mandate of heaven, the rights and responsibilities ratio, and finding a common thread. So the action items: what rights have you been given that you're grateful for? What are your current responsibilities that you have in exchange for these rights? And what does being a vicegerent now mean to you? And to end, I'm going to end with this quote: men and women without purpose are led by the programming of God, but men and women with purpose are the programming of God on earth. That's by Alama Iqbal. So that's it for this one, and I'll see you on the next one.